Many people would say that Manchester City are the best team in the world, and that is arguably, if not absolutely true. Their squad and manager are some of the best. They've won the treble last year, and last season earned their 4th Premier League title in a row. So why am I making this video? Because how their team as a franchise in the historical context and as a community is viewed by majority of football fans that leave them to believe so many myths about this team that are simply not true. Before I get into the video, let me just preface by saying I am a City fan. I know, such a bold and brave statement. So I may sound a little bit defensive, but I gotta go all out for my club. Also, comment below why you support the club you do, whether it be your local team or another reason. I'm not gonna lie, my love for City started when I saw them as a team on FIFA 14. You know those mobile games they had back in the day, like 10 years ago. And I picked that team, I stuck with that team, and that was like my first Premier League team that I know. So yeah, the rest is history. Like, subscribe, and let's go. Right, so I'm gonna start the video by going through Man City's entire history to this date as fast as I can and as accurate as I can. That way, I don't get any more City don't have history comments. Man City were founded in 1880 as St. Mark's. This was a club run by a church, and it was in 1894 that they were officially Manchester City. Manchester City joined the Football League in 1892, and 22 years later won their first trophy in the FA Cup in 1904. That means City have won a trophy before their Manchester rivals, Manchester United, who won it in 1908. Beat that, history merchants. Years later, Manchester City have started to get their first taste of constant success as they reached 2 back-to-back FA Cup finals, losing to Everton in 1933 but beating Portsmouth for the second in 1934. On the 1934 run, City held a record for the highest home attendance with over 84,000 fans packed into Main Road. This is my reaction to anybody that says City doesn't have fans. Around that time, City won their first ever First Division Championship title in 1937. However, that is only a short success story as they were relegated the next season. The thing is, they scored the most goals that season as well. Funny how that works out. They spent the following years in the second division until 1955, where they reached back-to-back FA Cup finals once again, losing the first but winning the second final against Birmingham City. However, City got relegated once again in 1963, and the future of the club was possibly going down. They even had the lowest record attendance at home with only a little above 8,000. So 2 years later, managers Joe Mercer and Malcolm Allison were appointed. You probably didn't know this, but these two men are about to change the club for the better. Right after, they won promotion straight back up to the top flight and won the second division as well. The first signings they made were Mike Summerby and Colin Bell, and safe to say, their legacy at Man City will never be forgotten. Fast forward to the first actual peak of Man City's successes during the late 60s, where they won their second league title, FA Cup, League Cup, and the European Winners' Cup. The only way is up now, right? Well, kind of. During the 70s, City would challenge for trophies, finishing 1 point behind the champions twice. An iconic match that happened during this era was a derby between the two Manchester teams, with City beating United, who needed to win to avoid relegation. The sole goal scorer during that game? Former United player, Dennis Law. It really be your own, huh? They also reached 2 other League Cup finals and won the later one in 76. Everything about Man City changed again in the 80s, but for the worse this time. Malcolm Allison came back to do the job solo, but proves to be financially irresponsible when it comes to signings. During the 80s, Manchester City went through 7 different managers. Believe it or not, Chelsea now are probably no different given their manager or 2 a year approach. They got promoted again in 89 and finished top half for the next 2 seasons. However, the manager at the wheel, Peter Reid, leaves, leaving City's performances to decline yet again. I mean, to be fair, his style of football was boring and he did have a pretty poor start to the season. I mean, you can only get away with so much as a caretaker manager. City were one of the 20 co-founders during the Premier League's inaugural season, but got relegated in 1996 after struggling for 4 years. They spent 2 years in the first division before eventually dropping to the 3rd tier in English football. This was the lowest point in their history, and everyone thought Manchester City was down and out in terms of top tier elite football. At this point, a lot of things needed to be changed within the club. And to start was hiring chairman David Bernstein, or Bernstein, however the hell you say it, who vowed for financial responsibility within the club. See, things like this is why Man City have so much money and getting the best deal when it comes to their signings, whether they arrive or leave. It was in their City DNA from like 30 years ago. With the new manager, Joe Royle, City were promoted back to the Premier League in only his first season there through the playoff final. But they got relegated again. How does this keep happening? Is it like selecting which years to lock in? New manager again, Kevin Keegan, who gets them back up in 01. He helped the team that season to break the record for the most points and most goals in one season. In 2003, Main Road closed up with a 3-1 Manchester Derby win for the first time in over 13 years. They would move to the City of Manchester Stadium, later the Etihad Stadium. City also qualified for a European competition for the first time in 25 years. That's a big achievement, I'm not gonna lie. More mediocre performances continue on for the next few years until 2008. I think we all know what happened here, but in case you don't, the Abu Dhabi United group decided to buy Manchester City after the previous owner, Thaksin Shinawatra, had his assets frozen due to political controversies. Let's just say these people have a lot of money, and when that happens, they spend that lot of money. I know, big surprise. In the first season, they broke the British transfer record while purchasing then Real Madrid international Robinho for over £30 million. They were still mediocre, but that was all about to change. Now, a year later in 2009, they became £100 million poorer, but they acquired Gareth Barry, Roque Santa Cruz, Kolo Toure, Emmanuel Adebayor, Carlos Tevez, and Julian Lescott. Also, manager Roberto Mancini. This is probably the start of fans saying that City are ruining football, but maybe they're jealous because they don't have rich owners. Mancini's first season at City went well, as there was a massive improvement as they finished 5th, earning a Europa League spot. In 2011-12, City continued to cook with blowout win after blowout win, but during the latter half of the season, they dropped in form and didn't do as well as they should have. They were 8 points behind United with only 6 games to go, who were the leaders at the time. But to City's surprise, United were also doing pretty bad, putting both Manchester teams level on points, just United were leading in goal difference. City only needed a win against a relegation-bound Queen's Park Rangers. They struggled during normal time, but Edin Dzeko scored to equalize in injury time before the most iconic moment in Premier League history took place. That's right, City won their first Premier League title and their first English championship in a very long time, over 40 years I think. They won on purely goal difference and snatched the title out of United's hands. There is no better feeling in the world, I'm telling you this now. This year was also the first time a title was won on goal difference as well. Unfortunately, that success couldn't be repeated as they finished 11 points behind United this time. Hell, they even lost the FA Cup final to a relegated Wigan Athletic. Like, I cannot comprehend how or why that happened. Sheikh Mansour had enough and decided to sack Mancini, and to replace him was Manuel Pellegrini. Pellegrini was able to win the League Cup and the league in his first season, which was pretty good. But in 2016, another manager change happened, and City brought in manager Pep Guardiola, previously from Bayern Munich and FC Barcelona. With a managerial CV like that, you can imagine he won at least a few trophies while with them. But believe it or not, Pep's first season at City wasn't all that good because they won 0 trophies his first year there. But I guess in life, you have to be patient, as they won the 17-18 season with the most points ever achieved in the Premier League at 100, along with other records to be broken that year. Manchester City under Pep Guardiola was revolutionary for their history, accomplishing 6 out of 7 Premier League titles, the domestic quadruple in 18-19, and the intercontinental treble in 22-23, which has only been done by 2 English teams, the other one being Manchester United back in 99. Oh yeah, before winning the Champions League, they reached the final for the first time in their history in 2021, but lost to Chelsea 1-0 in Porto. However, with the good comes the bad. In 2020, UEFA suspended Manchester City from the Champions League for 2 years due to suspected financial fair play condition breaches. The Court of Arbitration for Sport, or CAS, argued that the ban was unjustified, overturning the suspension. But when everyone thought it was over, in 2023, the Premier League took matters into its own hands and started their own investigation into City for FFP. City fired back, and now the case for whether they have spent too much money starts later this year, not sure when exactly, with a verdict promised early 2025. And that brings us to today. With the City lore I just gave you, we have quite a good amount of history, should I say. We've had our ups and downs, our sad moments, and our glad moments. I mean, we've got relegated like 5 times. I bet nobody expected us to go down that many times. Still, it's a lot. Not even me. It's basically character development. I think the most misunderstood part about Man City history is that other teams' historical events are known to be the mainstream events even more. An example being Man United's trouble in 1999, because you had the likes of David Beckham, Eric Cantona, and Sir Alex Ferguson, who was one of football's best managers, like, ever. Basically, all famous names back in the 90s, but for teams like City, you kind of have to educate yourself and dig a little deeper. Majority of City fans know who Colin Bell was. I'm not entirely sure about any other fans. Also, United have more fans internationally, I will admit that, while City has more of a local following, hence the stereotype that all United fans are from London. But that means I am admitting that United have more fans. Nothing against it, the numbers don't lie. Another thing to consider is that other teams in England may have more history, I put that in quotations, if you're to call it that, but that doesn't mean Manchester City don't have history, but we sure as hell have a great future ahead of us. But it doesn't mean Manchester City have no or plastic fans. Near the beginning of the video, I mentioned the 84,000 people that attended in the 1934 home match against Stoke. Our top 10 attendances are pre-21st century, so to say that we have glory hunters post-2008 is simply not true. We've got more old fans than people think. It doesn't matter when you start supporting a team, whether it be a month ago or 20 years, if you stick with the team through thick and thin, wins and losses, you're valid. Also, 20 years ago, weren't people supporting Man United or Arsenal because they were the trending team? So I want you to take a look at these following images and tell me if a single one of those people are faking their passion. Like, that just sounds ridiculous if you think they are. That's gonna do it for the video today. Do you guys like it when I talk about random topics like this? What do you guys think of Man City? Let me know in the comments. I have more videos planned in the future, so make sure you like, subscribe, and all that stuff. So yeah, have a good day, and peace.